Welcome to the Organic Supply Chain Panel 1 Challenges and Opportunities. I'm Eric Schwartz. I'm the CEO of United Vegetable Growers Cooperative. Our cooperative is the largest leafy greens cooperative here on the West Coast, representing both conventional and organic. Our members represent about 70% of the organic leafy greens acres today. It's hard to pick up a trade publication and not read something about issues related to labor or water or some other input challenge. It's rare, however, to read about how that impacts the organic production and distribution. In some cases, those issues mirror conventional, but in others, organic production distribution poses unique challenges and opportunities. The next two sessions, we'd like to give you some insight into the challenges and opportunities that the organic distributors, retailers, and growers face, many of which you might not be able to read about in a trade publication. You can't go wrong with any of the educational tracks this morning, but the fact you picked this one, you're in the right one. We hope you find this first panel interesting enough to come back after the break for the second session, which gets more into the distribution and retail side. With that, I'd like to introduce Jan DeLizer, who's the Vice President of Marketing for the California Avocado Commission. And this first panel will focus on the growing side where it all begins.
Thank you very much, Eric. Eric did a fantastic job in helping align this panel and the following group on the subjects today. So thanks again for all your work and what you did. Also would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors this morning. They are right here. Four Seasons Produce is the session sponsor, and then the Sound AV sponsor is Origin O. So I have the pleasure of serving as your moderator, and it's really good to see so many familiar faces out in the crowd. At this point in time, we're going to take a moment and have each speaker introduce themselves. So we've got Rod Braga, and we've got Will Feliz, and Roger Pepperell. So Rod, I'll turn it over to you.
I need this little
clicker. Yes, you do.
Thank you. They've got me mic'd up so I don't have to stand here and do anything. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you. Rod Braga, President and CEO of Braga Fresh Family Farms. This is actually our 90th year this year. We've kind of started in the dairy and cattle business in 1928. My grandfather, Sebastian Braga, and my grandmother, Josephine Braga, and that's where we ended up with our label. Third generation farmer, and that's the fourth generation right out there with me in the field. Sebastian, named after my grandfather. Our story kind of mirrors a lot of what's in the Salinas Valley and probably a lot of valleys around the country that you are all from. We started off in the dairy business and the cattle business, but in the Salinas Valley, always growing vegetables at the same time. It was always lettuce and celery and cauliflower, but also back in the 30s and 40s, it was sugar beets and tomatoes and carrots and onions. And after every decade that went by, it seems like we kind of lost one of those crops to another part of the country where the rents were cheaper and labor was cheaper and everything else. And then we sort of evolved into romaine lettuce and broccoli in the 60s and romaine in the 70s, and then eventually finally getting into organics in the I guess the late 80s, early 90s. I think 1992 was our first year. And this is sort of our little tree that we've got here for you to look at. We took out a cattle little 30-acre plot that we had, and it was, when we told my dad, I said, well, it's organic. I think it was 1991 or 1992. We can always go back if it just doesn't work out. That first year, we actually got a big rain after we leveled this 30 acres and put all this pipeline in to have this 30 acres of organic ground, which was kind of a big little plot in 1991, 92 in the Salinas Valley. And then we got a 7 inches in March that year of rain, and it just destroyed everything that we put in. So that's how we kind of started in the organic business. And it's been slightly rockier since then, I think. Right? And then, of course, it was baby spring mix and spinach that really, everything was pushing on the organic deal at that time. And that's what we transitioned our ground to get us involved in that. Eventually took us to the Central Valley a little bit, and then down to Imperial Valley and Yuma, Arizona area as well, where we now grow year-round crops and have transitioned around, I think, close to 4,000 acres in the Salinas Valley, and we've got 8,000 acres in Imperial and Yuma valleys that we farm organically as well. We're still in the conventional business. There's a lot of people, we run into people sometimes, why are you in the conventional business still? Well, when the organic started, as I mentioned, on the baby spring mix and spinach, that was kind of that cattle ground we took out, and it was ground that you couldn't have farmed with done other vegetables, iceberg lettuce certainly, or romaine, or cauliflower, or broccoli. But the baby stuff 30, 40-day crop was perfect for it. But now, as soon as organics has evolved into the crops that, the iceberg lettuce, the celery, the broccoli that we grow now, everything you can see, these crops need ground that's been farmed, whether it's in the Salinas Valley, the Imperial Valley, or the Yuma Valley, or any valley in Texas or Michigan or Florida that's been farmed for 100 years. So now it's all about, as organics grow, we have to keep transitioning ground. And so we're transitioning probably 300 to 500 acres a year of our conventional ground. We have to keep a certain size of that. And then I'll jump ahead because I'm taking too much time. It was just, I think, 5 or 6 years ago that we started our Josie's Organics label, which of course pays respect to our grandmother. And with this, we started with just broccoli and I think romaine hearts, and now we do 25 items. And then 2 years ago, we got into the full line of processed items, ready to eat, spinach, the chopped salads, everything that you see here. So now we have a complete line of all that, and so that's kind of our history. But we're definitely still family farmers. Was out there yesterday. Every day we're on the farm, on the ranch, and my little guy likes to go out with me. That's a few years ago. His sister's 5 today, and he's going to be 7 in a couple of weeks. So that's our history. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Roger Pepperell. I'm with DeMilk Growers. I'm the marketing director. And let's get started. So we're in Wenatchee, Washington. If anybody knows where Wenatchee is, it's in the center of Washington State, right past the mountain range. And we're in the desert. We're in that fruit belt. Wenatchee's famous for tree fruit and Bitcoin mining. Huh? Like that combination? So we're in the paper every once in a while now. So our company is owned by the Matheson family. They're a 5th generation family, wonderful family, just unbelievable. And we got started in organic in the 80s. I'll tell just a super quick story. Tom Matheson, who was the founder of the company that it's called today, he was my hero. He's passed since, but he was just one of the smartest men you'd ever meet, and always 20 years ahead of his time. A bank had interest in a large farm of about 500 acres, and it was having financial trouble. And they told the owners of it they were going to have Tom farm it for them and get it turned around. So he did something real unusual in the 80s. He turned it into organic, and people thought he was crazy. And we marketed our first box of organic in 1989, and been on that road ever since. The owners of that land, to end the story, they got the biggest check they ever got in return for that farming they did. And as wonky as they thought Tom was, they all flew back up to Wenatchee and thanked him for what he did. So it's our little organic story that's kind of old now. So like I said, we've been growing for 30 years. Tom was our founder, as I said. He not only did that transition of that 500-acre orchard, but he also started our sustainability program in 1989. There's a little ladybug on top of our logo today. He put that on there in '89 when he started the reduction of pesticide, herbicide usage, and started building in some practices for organic farming in all of our orchards. So we're about 30% organic today, and there's a variety of reasons for that. The market's transitioning. Also, with the storage issues we have with apples, there's limitations, and of course there's a huge market for conventional still, but organic is in our blood. So organic isn't just a thing we do, it's what we do. We do apples, pears, cherries, and stone fruit, and we do a lot of each. All of our stone fruit is organic, so that's 100%. We're starting right now. And I told you about our Responsible Choice program that was trademarked in '89, and again, Tom was way ahead of himself as far as that sustainability. But we have a large compost farm too, and that's another part of our program. We're farming about 21 acres of compost. It's all custom compost. It's a prescription made for the orchards. Right now, we're feeding about 1,400 acres, 1,500 acres of trees off this compost farm. Not all of it, but a good portion of the hill is being done that way. And it's wonderful what that does. We're integrating with the town on green waste, and it's just a great story. And brands, we're all about brands at Stamilt. So these are some of our brands that we have, and we build around them not only conventionally but organically, so it's a dual process. And packaging, we try to carry that through on packaging, and that's who we are. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Roger. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Will Felice. I have the privilege of serving as a Chief Executive Officer of Wawona Packing. This is a completely useless slide because it just talks about me, with the exception that it does say that I grew up in Firebaugh, California, so a shout out to the Valley. Wawona Packing was founded by the Smitkamp family in the 40s. It was actually resurrected by Brent Smitkamp, now our chairman, in the late 90s or late 80s, early 90s. Brent took it from a 300,000 package facility to where we pack over 10,000 acres of stone fruit and citrus yearly. Just kind of some of the highlights of what we consider to be some of the most premier stone fruit in the country. State-of-the-art R&D facility. We believe in genetics and the philosophy of bettering our varieties on a generational basis. Our farming techniques, we believe, are state-of-the-art, both conventionally and organically. Our processing on our first-grade sweet-to-eat fruit is zero grade, zero defect policy. And then sales, we work with our customers to divide buying programs that hopefully are tailored to each specific retailer and food service outlet. So this is really about answering your questions and discussing the state of the industry. So I wanted to make sure it was short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Will. Well, thanks to each of our panelists for being here. Thank you again for all of you for being here. Clearly, we've got some experts in each of their areas of organics and production, and so we're going to dig into the challenges. And I'll open up the questioning, but I hope to have participation from each of you. So be thinking of questions as these gentlemen speak, and we'll look to the audience for questions as we move forward. It's going to be quick because we've got until 8:50 with a hard stop. So first question that I have is, it's clear that in the world of organics, the growth is just, it seems unending, and you all have been big parts in that. But as you think about the future and you just think about what you do and opportunities and challenges, is there one or two things that you could cite that actually keeps you up at night when you think about the future of organics and things that you'd like actually the audience to be aware of that you're dealing with? And we'll start with you, Rod.
So just one or two things?
One or two. Yeah, limit it. And don't take the whole show. Pass it on.
I think for us, it's not as specific to organic. I mean, we're just in the farming in general that everybody sees and everybody in this room has to deal with. Labor's been the one deal that has been in every panel I've watched in the last 15 years. Somebody's talking about that, and it was somewhere on the list. And now it's just right in front of us. And it's 5 years ago it was how are we going to get the things harvested, and now today it's how are we going to get these things planted, right? And that's the mechanized part that's easy and fast. So I think that's probably one of the first things for us.
Well, labor, of course, so couldn't agree more. I think you'll get a lot of agreement there. I'd say the other thing, too, is, we transition in 3 years. A lot of our orchards today are built with a transition plan right when we plant them. But the thing that keeps you up is wondering if you're going to be able to sell it. Because what we go through is we don't have enough. Retailers are saying, plant more. We plant more. And then we have it, and they're not used to us having that much, and then we have to adjust there. So this market's a little like this as we catch up with this demand. And, everybody thinks you just can grow it, pack it, and the retailer can just put it on ad, but you have a whole transition plan of retail space, getting the promotions. and lowering that barrier for that organic shopper to feel like that they're equally as marketed to as the conventional shoppers. So that's a disruption that's happening between the grower and the retailer, and I think that's a tough one.
I can see that sitting in the third chair, you guys are going to take all the easy answers, and I'm going to end up having
We're
to
starting
come
with
up
you next, Will.
Yeah, I'm not liking this setup. Well, first off, those two things. I think about those two things a lot. And then secondly, the legislative environment in the state of California is making it increasingly difficult for us, not just as growers of organics, but growers in general. That just compounds organic production by a factor of, 10. So there's plenty of things to keep you up at night, right? We could probably make a whole different working discussion or panel about that. But I think the other thing that I'm constantly discussing with peer group members, and it's not an organic specific issue, I think it's an industry specific issue, is talent. Not just folks to pack it and to harvest it, but folks to lead. Folks that are going to be that next generation of leaders that'll take up the mantle of responsibility and lead our industry into the next generation. I think about that a lot, and what we're going to do to make ourselves an attractive marketplace, an attractive career path for the smart folks that we want in our industry.
That is very well said. Are there any questions from the audience? Because I have more. Yes, sir. Please identify. We've got a microphone here from Wolfgang.
Troy Boutney from Ocean Mist, Roger. Hey, Rod, Roger mentioned transition plans. Rod, in the Salinas Valley, you know what our rents are. How do you justify a 3-year transition plan with the rents that we have?
Well, thank you, Troy. So I was as we look back to what we did, there's absolutely probably no way we would have transitioned the ground we did if we said we're going to have this plan to do this X 4,000 acres in Salinas Valley, right? And our family would have said that we're crazy. So for us, it was piece by piece, and we just kind of fell into it. But that's something that we look at here with rents in the Salinas Valley being $2,000 an acre on average, and you throw taxes on that, 3 years. In the conventional, you're talking $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 an acre to transition an acre of ground, and to be anything of substantial way, you're talking about needing a couple thousand acres in the Salinas Valley, 4,000 in Imperial or Yuma because you get one crop on it. I think to be someone who's a mid-level shipper on the conventional side that perhaps is doing 10 million packages a year, which is substantial but not incredible. It's a $40 million bill to have that many packages to transition that to get to where you want to go, and figure out how you're gonna pay for that is a huge thought for us. We just sort of I just kind of went with the old. My dad was a big Oakland Raiders fan, and John Madden was the coach, and he used to tell the team, "Don't worry about the horses being blind, just load the wagon." Nobody knew what the hell that meant, and so that's just what we just load the wagon.
So Roger and Will, anything to add to that from a tree fruit standpoint?
Well, and for us, when you're transitioning, you have a market for it conventionally, and I'd say that takes the barrier down quite a bit. And in fact, there's a conventional plan for that fruit before it goes organic, so we're a little different situation. And we have, like in the case of apples, we have 12 months to market, so we can place those up front if we need to or whatever as far as when they get harvested. So a little different deal.
I think it'd be worth mentioning that we the same way as we transition, we're selling that product conventionally. But I think it's worth noting that once you initiate those organic protocols, your yields can go down radically. So sure, I can sell it transitionally. Selling it at above break even is a completely different consideration, and you're doing that for 3 years on a permanent crop that's already substantially expensive. That's quite a ticket.
Okay, so let's turn our attention to something that there's no shortage of media coverage about, and that's food waste. One report estimates that up to 40% of food is lost to waste. It's grocerywaste.com, and if we need a source on that. Will, could you just share with us what food waste means to you, and then we'll ask the other panelists the same.
Well, yeah, I think that's subjective, right? Everybody has a different version of food waste. For me, it's really about the food that could have made it into the supply chain, that made our grades and expectations of our customers, and wasn't ultimately consumed by the end user. So that means that we missed the boat somewhere along. Maybe we harvested it right, we packed it right, we cooled it right, and for whatever reason, market conditions, production conditions, whatever the case may be, that fruit never made it to somebody's table or on somebody's plate. I think that's the most tragic waste of all. The other wastes, how we identify, are we growing enough or too much, we can calibrate that, right? We're a pretty smart industry and super fast followers, so that doesn't worry me as much as making sure, how do we ensure that we have a sophisticated enough supply chain to make sure that the fruit and food that should be consumed by our end user is actually making it there.
Food waste to me, I left a little rice on my plate yesterday, but I did a pretty good job otherwise. And I think people that see food waste think about things like that to start with. I think most people that talk about that conversation are really thoughtful people. But I think, one thing I think about food waste on our end of the deal, that I'll just talk about one segment of it. We have a lot of what people would perceive as waste. But when the Hort staff goes out and they're employed to go out and grow fantastic tree fruit, apples, we'll talk about apples. So basically the retail environment wants this segment in the middle. And that's a premium fruit, and that's where you get paid. And that's where the market goes. So there's a lot of product that falls below that for grade or size or some reason where it might be perceived as very usable to moderately usable. A lot of that goes to juice, goes to slices, apple pies, frozen, all sorts of applications. But there is a certain amount, there's a large amount that goes right to waste. But I'll tell you right now, if that was to go into the market in some form, it would actually shut down our plants, it would shut down our trucking, it would shut down harvest. It would just have numerous repercussions. Most of that product would go out below the cost of production, and your infrastructure that you build is, you're paying for those assets to make a certain amount of money. So if you put more in at underneath that cost, which we're already doing anyway, we're bringing a lot of product that is below the cost of production. If you brought it all in, you would need more assets at losing money, and you would technically go out of business. So to think that it goes totally to waste, some people would say, boy, you could feed people with it, but it's going to compost, it's going to, it's getting out of the orchard and being regenerated into the soil. And when you're aiming for a target, you're always going to have some that are off here and there. It's a hard story to tell people, but economically, it just would never happen if you brought everything in through the plant. So that's one part of food waste that I think people don't think of, the cost of bringing low-grade product through a system.
Rod, anything to add?
So we had a bus tour out from here yesterday, and we were looking at a celery field and an iceberg lettuce field, organic, and everyone's always shocked that, in a celery field, we're cutting this much off, why don't we eat that? Well, right, and getting to where it is, and if you think about something like romaine hearts where you're peeling so much off, but for us, we're planting these crops as rotational crops as well. So for us out there, some folks are looking like, my gosh, look what you're not taking out of the field. But on the organic side, we look at it and go, hey, look at what we're not taking out of the field, right? We like what we're turning back in. So that's kind of our side on the growing side.
Thank you. It's time to ask the audience. Any questions out there? John? You must use the microphone, John.
John Holder, Grocery Outlet. And how much pressure are you guys seeing today on FOBs because of freight of where it's at today? And are you seeing more pressure on the organic FOBs or on the conventional? And what are you guys doing to take cost out of the system to make it more attractive for the retailer to go ahead and purchase that product? Because we have a certain plateau of retail where we want to be, and you guys obviously have to make money too. So how much pressure are you seeing?
Roger, why don't you start off with that one?
Tremendous pressure. I'd say that one is the most expensive part of our operation is labor itself. And I'm going to tell you, the pressure is not to push it down in costs. We're paying more every day. And I think anybody that farms is going to agree with me at some level, and maybe even more than I am speaking. So that's become the biggest part of the operation. It's hard. FOB pricing versus delivered, this freight it's a monster. And the same pressure on organic as conventional. So I don't see a huge difference there. How we're trying to get around it, we're trying to do a better job on loading. We put an ASR building in, trying to get our freight, our loading times down, and that operation from packing to shipping, compress it, because nobody wants to pay for that. It's an invisible cost to the consumer. So that's a robotic process that we've put in where we have robots selecting and putting away. That's one way we are, but we're forced to do that to try to get your trucks out faster and also to reduce the labor. There isn't enough people to do the forklift jobs anymore, so there's two reasons to do it. So a lot of pressure, and one thing everybody should know, I know you know that very well in your question, but you know, the freight, if you're charging $8 a case for apples and there's 40 pounds in a box, a little less than that, you got 20 cents a pound, which is 40 cents at retail, and it doesn't take long to tell that story. That adds a lot of cost. So, good question.
Anything to add?
So for us, humongous pressure on it, right? And especially like we were in that celery field yesterday, and you know we want to send this to Florida or New Jersey. About the heaviest product that we do out here in vegetables just doesn't work. But go back to our slide where we show all of our stuff. What we try to do for folks is say, you know, you can't, if you're going to put a straight load of celery, you're looking at 16 pallets or something like that. You can't afford to get it across the country, right? But take 6 pallets of that and then start mixing in our broccoli and our romaine hearts that are lighter, and then get our ready-to-eat program, or you know, where we're shipping the spinach and that, and now we can fill out a truck and bring that cost down to you. So instead of your truck going around everybody, our sales pitch is, you know, we've got everything on the organic commodity side, on the wet veg, and then we put the process and mix those loads in, and try to beat it with service too, right? So you can load with us, you know, every day if you want, and we can send these mixer loads with all of our product to you all across the country, right?
Will?
So, you know, what are we currently doing to alleviate FOB pressure? I think, you know, the answer transcends logistics or any other single metric. I think the answer, we're doing everything. Technology, cultural practices, labor analysis, analytics, you name it, we're doing it to try and shave those last pennies out of our cost system so that we can come in at an FOB that's attractive. And John, I want to thank you for asking that question, because when the retail roundtable comes around, I think I want to ask the same question. What are you guys doing to reduce the cost in our system so we can get to FOBs that everybody wants to be at? Because it really is, it's a collaborative effort, right? We can't shoulder it on our own shoulders by ourselves. It has to be a collaborative effort between ourselves and our retail and food service partners.
I have a question on top of that question, and it relates to the premiumness, I'll say, of organics. And when you talk about retail and the evolution of all that's going on in the retail world, and I know we've got other panels that are going to touch on this, but I'm just curious, from your perspective, when you think about, you've talked a lot about the cost, you know, of the inputs and all of the challenges that you face, but how do you view sustaining or maintaining the premium status of organic produce with all of the changes that are going on throughout the marketing channels?
That's our one of our tagline is premium organic vegetables. We see that. I think that what's happening is we have to maintain this now. What's going to happen in our industry going forward is that the premium that there is because of the growing cost difference between organic and conventional, although we're working every day and the retailers need it, and to bring that closer together. I think what we're seeing the pressure is now is that we're going to kind of see that the difference between conventional and organic actually squeeze a little bit, because unfortunately the cost is going up on all of it, right? And so the costs that are raising the prices now are not just to organic. It's really labor and regulation and shipping, and these are raising conventional as well. and the pressure is the same going forward. So I think we just keep focusing on, we do both conventional and organic, and for us, we're focusing on the healthiness of vegetables, and that we want to make sure that that understand why there is that premium on the organic, and why that the consumer understands, what the difference is, and that's probably the biggest part that our challenge, I think, is to put out towards people.
I'd say the premium, first of all, we need a premium because, as you mentioned, we have worry about alternate bearing on crops. If you get a smaller crop some years, especially on this tree fruit, it can alternate bear. There can be costs in that system, and some of the farming can cost you more. But the premium, I got to tell you, the premium comes down to supply and demand. And there's a huge demand for organic product out there. But however, like I said earlier, you can't just grow it and just expect that demand just to be there that week. So in some cases, we may be making handsome prices. In some cases, we may be starving. But we're trying to develop markets so that in the future that we have healthy environments for people to buy lots of organics for a longer period of time, or 52 weeks of the year in many cases. So as the supply and demand thing gets leveled off, I think that arises more. We are encouraging to work with retail to have a spread that's reflective of what'll sell, not just what we want or what the retailer wants. It's got to sell in turn. We're often in tree fruit trying for 50 cents to $1 a pound retail difference, and try to keep it fairly level.
So as we started the season with our program, putting together our programs for our customer partners, a recurrent theme is, your organics are substantially more expensive than your conventional. If we could just get to the right spread, we think that, that would increase velocity. I hope I don't, from the grower side, I hope I don't get booted out of Monterey by saying I agree that that's probably true. The trick is, how do we get there? How do we get there at a level of profitability that is sustainable and ultimately that's attractive enough for you to go through all of the pain and process to bring in a premium quality organic crop? Because it's not just bringing in a crop. Our folks are picky, right? They want really pretty organic fruit too. Try that. It's not easy, I can assure you. We talk about the things that keep me up at night. That's clearly one of them. I promise, I want to get to that spread that allows for greater velocity. I'm just trying to figure out how I do that and not get run out of my job.
Thank you all. Any yes, sir. Wait for the mic if you would, Wolfgang.
So you guys have very gracefully mentioned a lot of the challenges that you face and a lot of the problems that you're dealing with. From your perspective, from the field to the retailers, like many of us here and myself, what are the golden arrows? What are the things that you could see that would solve some of these problems through to the consumer, or at least kind of help unlock some of the solutions, or make it easier for you that we can all do together, or that the retailer could do, or somewhere in the supply chain? What can be done to resolve some of these challenges that you guys have so eloquently described?
It's a great question. Would you mind identifying yourself? I'm sorry. Dave?
My name's Omar. I'm from Village Juicery in Toronto.
Okay. Thank you very much. Who wants to start?
Age before beauty. Go ahead, Rod.
So we were up here earlier before the panel started, and I think we were talking amongst ourselves about how incredible and fantastic it is to see so many young people out, in Monterey that are in our industry now, and how do we? So we were attracting some of them, thankfully. How do we retain these folks, right? So I mean, it makes us feel like that there's something to go on with this, right? And also, I believe that we're still here. We love the business that we do, all of us, right? But we're just, can we work with can we get our story out to the consumer? We need to do a lot better job from us at the farm through you all to explain to people how incredible it is to eat the fresh fruits and vegetables, right? I mean, an apple a day, right? Amen. That's how I grew up, right?
Amen.
But if we can make people understand that how healthy that is and get that really power that lifestyle through, right? So what we do is we sell from everybody from tiny farmers markets that come and glean some of our fields sometimes, and then we export it. We send it all over the country. We love farmers markets that pop up all over the country. I mean, it helps us, right? We love people that are gardening. We love everything. And we're a big size organic farm, but we love to see the rooftop farming that's taking place in the big cities. I don't see that as a challenge to us in any way. I think it's just promoting the fresh fruits and vegetables to be eaten by everybody. That's the story we have to send out to everybody, I think.
I'd say that one of the golden arrows would be better planning. I think this organic production is changing so quickly and rapidly. I think we need to take more time and collaborate more between retailer and grower. How are we going to sell this product in a different world? I was at retail for a fair amount of years myself, and as much as I thought I was progressive, and I think I was, you still look at history a lot, and the history book can be really dangerous on organic because it's changing so fast. So I think that coming up with a great plan that moves product fast. The other golden arrow, speaking of young people, we have a big team of people that figure out when that crop gets picked, how are we going to maximize every second of that crop life to get it in a box and not put it in the wrong box, put it in the box that one of you out there might need, and get the best sale for that product at the quickest time possible and store it exactly the right amount of days. And there's so much money in that little bit of that process itself that I don't think we can focus enough on that. But I would say that, and then this coming up with labor solutions, and that's if you got about 3-4 hours, we could talk about that. But we are working on that too.
Will?
Excuse me. I honestly don't believe there's a golden arrow. There's no silver bullet, no magic dust. It's a bunch of little stuff, the blocking and tackling every day that has to happen, true relationship partnerships between your customers and yourself. I think that's really key. Customer partners that understand what we're going through in order to bring those premium quality products to the table. Look, we all have to try and, in order to be sustainable by definition, to be here next year, we all have to make a reasonable return on investment. Better than we can put into the bank in a CD, right? It's pretty simple economics. Understanding each other's trigger points with regard to that, I think, is critical so that we are rowing in the same direction. I think industry alignment, making sure that whether we're packing apples or romaine hearts or nectarines, that we're doing everything we can to articulate a unified message about the power and the importance of the products that we provide the world. And then, I have a lot of hope for the next generation, the millennials and the generation after that. All of the studies would say that they're interested in where their food comes from and how it's being made, and they're asking questions. My son asked the other day, he's 14 and was eating a nectarine, and asked if it was a GMO product. First, I'm embarrassed because I failed as a parent, as a produce person, that my kid would ask if a nectarine was a GMO product. But secondly, it was telling that he asked the question, and are we going to have answers? Are we going to have answers before they ask it and they've already made decisions in their head about it? Those are the things we have to think about, and I think we have to have a powerful message behind that. Unified. Retailers, food service, wholesalers, you name it. The entire industry has to get out with that message, because those next couple of generations, they're our meal ticket for the next 50 years, right?
So this leads into, it's a subject that we could take a day or two to talk about, but sustainability. And you've all addressed it in a roundabout way, but I'm just curious, when you think of sustainable or sustainability, what definition do you put to that?
Our whole, our whole business is built around that, and even before we were marketing it as organic, right? For farmers, I think in fact, farmers are the first environmentalists in the world, right? Everything that we do is built around the land and keeping that land. And we talk on some of our history for ourselves. I grew up on the ranch with my grandfather and my dad, and they never talked about organic or sustainable, but it was just the way we farmed, right? And so it was cover crops, it was rotation, it was taking care of the land so it's better, in 10 years than it was. And in fact, our home ranch in Soledad is in better shape today than it was when my grandfather bought that ranch, right? The soil's in better condition today than it was in the late 1920s. And that's because of maintaining, keeping it for that next generation, and it's your livelihood, right? So for us, I think that's the story that we need to tell people, is that it's not a marketing gimmick. It's the soil, the dirt, the ground for us is where it all starts. And we're just farmers, and if we don't maintain and keep that relationship with our soil, then we're out of business, right?
Likewise, I'll echo a lot of that, but our founder always said that we're just short-term tenants of this land, and when you think about, 1 million years or something like that, we're just going to be a speck on that land. He always felt like we should return that land how we got it or better, and that was always his message. And so I think that's the overriding message. But the other thing is, sustainable to us is be able to continue to do it day after day after day. And if you're taking and not giving back, you're not in balance. It's always going to be non-sustainable. So I think we're thinking about that. I think a part of sustainability that we didn't discuss a lot was, we talked about labor, but I think labor is, we're going to a lot of robotics. We're forced to go faster and faster to find robotic solutions, and they're happening. But labor is always going to be part of our situation. And I think labor's got to be sustainable. So we're doing a lot of things to make labor sustainable. We put in we put in clinics in our facilities. So we've negotiated with the hospital. We actually have a hospital wing right in our complex where the employees have a benefit package, probably similar to a lot of what you have out there. And they have the same package I do, but you pay in as a copay. If you decide not to buy our insurance, which is pretty attractive, and there's people that don't, we give free medical care at our clinic, and we have free pharmacy. And we're doing that because we want healthy workers that like to be there, and they have pressures, so they can bring their families, their spouse into that clinic. And it's all about keeping that workforce sustainable, right? And that's just one little piece of it, but it's endless. So that's another portion.
Yeah, sustainability is, it's a holistic vision, right? It's everything from environmental stewardship to profitability. Sustainability is nothing if you can't turn a dollar, and the banks will keep your credit line open. So it's an absolutely gigantic topic, and we could sit here and discuss each piece of it. Our jobs as leaders of our respective enterprises is to not lose focus, that it's not just one thing. It's not just environmental stewardship. It is making sure that we're making our people's lives better, and that we're making our customers' lives better. Just thinking about all the things that keep me up at night. Sustainability, when we talk about that, is again an incredibly large topic. We could slice it into several different segments, but at the end of the day, each one of those components has to be addressed. It has to be managed. It has to be served on a daily basis, or the entire ship sinks.
Thank you. I saw another hand up. Yeah, please wait for the microphone if you don't mind.
I'm Bill Schwer with Concentric Ag, and kind of playing along the sustainability discussion. What about the future of water and water availability? It's all critical for all these crops, and depending which valley you're in or what area, whether it's groundwater or surface water, how are we going to be able to continue to farm with limited supplies?
That is an awesome question. Clearly, we're going to continue to badger our legislators into substantially larger amounts of water storage. We talk about the state of California. We're desperately low of water storage. We need to work on that. I think we have to formulate a message that allows the public that consumes our products that we're not the enemy, that farming a crop that you consume, a wholesome, life-giving crop that you consume, is not a waste of water. Look, we have an uphill battle. The state of California is short of water. And when resources get short, agriculture is an easy big target to point your finger at and lay blame. We have to get in front of that. Organizations like WGA and the work they do with regard to that, tirelessly, relentlessly. We have to get on the same page and shout to the rooftops to our legislative body that this will not work. And when the water dries up, the jobs will dry up. And Google and Facebook will not have enough jobs to employ the folks that are in the state of California. So our jobs may not be sexy, they may not be popular, but we feed the nation and we keep the wheels turning. And I'll be done, because if I don't, you don't get me started.
The fact that you said it was an awesome question is validity there. Roger, Rod, anything to add? He said it pretty well.
Yeah, I think water is always an issue. You know, up in Washington State, we're a little more blessed with our situation, but you never know how long that lasts. We have a great reservoir and water system in the state. And I'd say that, you know, since I've been there the past 20 years, you've seen all sorts of ways to conserve water, even though in many cases we have senior water rights and we're not necessarily against a wall, but we're still working really, really hard. And I think getting the biologies of the soil up so they can retain more water and use it better. And so we're working on that. And, you know, Seattle's the fastest growing city in America, and you never know what happens in our state. It's becoming very populated on the west side. And I drove through the Central Valley all the way across the state a few weeks ago, and I just noticed they moved Napa Valley up there. There's about 5,000 wineries. It's crazy, and it's because of the water, right? They're coming up because of the water, and so I think it's a huge issue, and I again agree with you. We farm in California too, and you know we farm cherries in Washington and in California, and when we farm in California, the water issues totally change. We not only have to worry about getting enough water, but we also have to worry about the salinity of the water and the quality of it, and the depth of the water, and then also, you know, is the delta going to be there? You know, that type of thing. So yeah, big issue.
I think I've tagged along with my dad and my grandfather at water meetings probably since the time I was 6, right? Because they didn't have a babysitter, hang out in those rooms. And I think the part of telling you what Will was saying in California is that it's a storage problem for us, and we have to get that. And in fact, you know, Senator Feinstein is pushing this and trying to raise Shasta to the level that it was designed for. But in World War II, they decided to kind of cap it, and they said, you know, hey, they'll add the 30 feet to it, which will put another 2 million acre feet. They'll do that in the 60s or 70s when they need it, surely, right? So here we are, I think, not adding a reservoir in California since the mid-1970s. The population's grown from about 18 million to close to 40 million people now. And you just can't do it through savings. It's ridiculous. In California, actually, if you look out here, you know, we have this Mediterranean climate for growing these vegetables. It's such an ideal place. And all the water is coming from up in the snowpack where there's no people living. So it's a perfect, and they built an incredible delivery system in California for the Central Valley Project, the feds and the state. And these were great visionaries in the 40s and 50s and 60s, right? The father of our current governor, you know, did most of it. But what we do in California is we decide to actually take about 95% of the snowpack and rainfall that hits California and send it to the ocean, right? We only actually try to capture about 20% of the rivers and with dams that we have. And then now we've made decisions bringing the water from up north into the Delta to not actually pump it and send it into the Central Valley, right? So we have enough water in California. It's just it's a storage issue, and it's an issue of conveyance and how to get it where you want to have it. We're set up so perfectly. And it's such a shame when you see what's happened like on the west side with the jobs that have already been lost, right? And I think that's what we're trying to do through WGA and our little local grower shipper association is it's not farmers that use the water, it's our employees that need the water, it's our cities in the valley that need the water, it's all the other industries that are built around it that desperately rely on our water source so much. And then put the part in about how it's sustainable to keep the farm land here where we are. Like I think Will said, we can't all be Uber drivers, right?
Okay, that was a great final question. Thank you very much. So to our panelists, thank you all for your great participation. All three have committed to stay for the next round in case there's questions come up that they might be able to handle with the next panel. But we thank you again for your participation. Have a good day.